Today we're going to be working on a 2016 Acura RLX. We'll be removing the bottom panel here, the radio, and we'll show you how to do that. Alright, so the first step will be taking off this bottom panel here. It comes off all the way around, and we're going to be using a pry tool for that. Just going to put it in this corner here and push out. You can feel it pop loose over here. And you can probably just grab it and pull it out, or you can use the pry tool on the other side. And once you get it out to here, we're going to turn the vehicle on to ignition. Not start it, but just turn it on. And then we'll shift back, and we'll start unplugging these connectors down here. There we go. And once we've got all those removed, the panel will come out. You can kind of see all the clips that are in here. And once that's out of the way, we can go ahead and unplug down here. It'll be the panel right here that we're unplugging. And after that, you can go ahead and turn off the car. Make sure you shift back into park. And from here, we're going to be removing these two screws and two 8mm that are underneath. So let's show you that. Alright, so we're going to take out the two screws here. And once we've got those out, we'll do the two 8mm. Now these are kind of high up. They're going to be around right here, all the way back, and you'll feel them probably about as the same level as these two bolts that you can see here, but they're up. You have to get in an angle to really see them, but first we're going to do the one over here, and to access this one, I'd normally unplug this, so we'll do that as well, and that'll get this harness out of the way so you can get your tool up into there. And for getting these, we're going to be using a 90-degree drill bit, or adapter, and we've got our 8mm on top. There's one removed. Now we'll do the one over here. There we go. And now that we've got those loose, we just have some trim to take off, and we're ready to remove the radio. Alright, so we're going to need to take off these two sides of trim here. We'll start with this one, and we're going to be using our pry tool on top just to pull out, and then we'll do the same on the bottom. You'll hear all the clips start popping loose. There we go. And there's going to be one 2-pin connector back here on the very bottom. It's kind of difficult to get to. But once you unplug that, this will come out. And there's all the clips. Got the two on bottom, two on top. And next we'll be moving over to this side over here. And we're going to be doing the same thing. We're just going to pry at this corner. Pry on the bottom. And from there you can just kind of pull around. If any parts are stiff though, make sure to use your pry tool to get them loose. And there's going to be this 2-pin connector down here. And there's where the 2-pin connector sits. And this is the 2-pin connector here. And then as you can see, we've got clips all along the bottom and top. Alright, so once we've got these two loose, we've taken out all 4 screws and bolts at the bottom. This will just pull directly out. Just grab onto each side, pull out. And there's some clips up here, so if it gets hung, just make sure you use your pry tool to get those loose. And from here, we're just going to be disconnecting everything behind the radio. And to get the radio to come fully out, you're going to need to unplug this up here, which is going to be a 4-pin connector, and it'll be over here on this side. Alright, so we've got the radio out a good bit now. It was a little bit tighter originally when we removed everything, so we had to undo the 3 connectors on this far right passenger side on the very top. And once those are loose, it gives you a little more room to actually see back here. So we're just going to continue disconnecting everything. There we go. And now that we've got that out, we're going to go ahead and hook up our harnesses and show you how to do that. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be hooking up is going to be our MCF HA3 cable. That'll be this one here. We have a special note here. It'll be in your packaging with the install instructions, and that'll be to connect this REV wire right here. You should have one of these in your kit as well, which will be the P-tap. So we'll be connecting that. First thing we'll need to do is strip the end of this just a little bit. once we've got that stripped, we'll leave it like this, and we're going to unscrew the top. We're just going to slide that over the wire like this, and then you're going to wrap this in here and twist it tight. So now we've got our reverse wire connected to the P-tap, and we'll be doing this to the 24-pin connector. It'll be the brown wire. And if you have a multimeter, this is always good to check, especially if you're having issues with the display showing up at all times. And so that's going to be this tan connector here, and there'll be this brown wire right here in pin slot number 24. And you're just going to slide this bottom piece around the wire like this. You can see the groove in there where the wire goes in. I've got this side here with the needle tip to it, which will actually dig into the wire and give us a solid connection. We'll tighten that. And now we've got that connected. And we can move on with the rest of the install here. So we'll be plugging in these two connectors right here. That one there, and this will be the 12-pin connector. There we go. And next we'll show you the other connections we'll make back here as well. Alright, so we're going to show you how to test this harness real quick to make sure that your reverse wires tag correctly. So we've got our multimeter here, we've got it set to DC voltage, and we'll be connecting these two pins here. So the black probe will go to the black wire, and the red probe will go to the purple wire, which is our reverse. And as you can see, vehicle's not on, we're in park, it's a 0 volts or right around that. As we turn on the vehicle, it should still stay at 0 volts, and as we go into reverse, we see it goes up to 12. And when we go back to park, it goes back down, so we do know that we've tagged the correct reverse wire, or correct wire, and we can continue with the install. Alright, so we're going to be putting all of our wires over here by this vent for now, so that we can run them into the glove box. So I'm just going to run our main harness over here to the side. And the next harness we're going to be connecting is going to be our VHON 3D. Out of these two connectors here, and then the display port for the VLine. And the factory connector looks very similar, although it's going to be gray in color. So we'll connect that here. And this will be hanging loose right now until we get the radio back in, where we'll plug it in. And then the last connector we're going to be putting back here is going to be our WL toy USB. And that won't connect to anything behind the radio here to any of these harnesses, but it'll actually plug directly into the radio. So we're just going to run that around this corner here and leave it hanging loose, similar to this one. And now that we've got all those in, we're ready to put the radio back in. Alright, so we're going to show you how to use the VToy USB cable, which will retain your factory USB. So in this case, it'll be this plug behind the radio, and that's where we're going to connect this adapter. And so the other end of this connector goes to the USB directly, the factory one. And now we've got this USB here that can be plugged into the VLine. If this isn't long enough from behind the radio to make it to your VLine or VLite, you'll be using the extension cable for that. So we'll plug that in here. And then we're going to run this to the USB, and we're either going to plug it into USB 1 or USB 2, depending on what your usage is going to be. If you do want to use CarPlay through it, you'll need to use USB 1. But some of these factory USBs are not able to handle CarPlay, and in that case I'd recommend plugging it into USB 2. Alright, so for the GPS antenna, we've installed it in here behind this vent and behind the trim. We put it on top of the metal module just so there's no metal above it. It's got like a clear way to the sky. This is a great place to put it, but you can put it anywhere you'd like behind the dash. Just make sure you don't keep it near any metal. Alright, so we're going to start assembling everything back here. So the first step will be plugging back in all of our harnesses. I like to start with the VLine ones since they're a little bit longer. That makes it easier to get those in. So this is our display cable here. We're going to plug it into this slot, and then this is our WL toy USB. We'll plug that in here. And then we're just going to double check for any more plugs that might be hiding down here. And before we put the radio back in and the final plugs, we're just going to get some slack pulled out there. Alright, so we've got everything plugged back in, so we can just slide it back into place now. Make sure you line up the bottom too and the top as well. There we go. And once it's in place fully, you'll see these top parts will line up and the bottom bolt holes down here will line up. So now that we know that's back in place, we're going to go ahead and run everything for the V-line and do some testing, and then we'll finish reassembling it. Alright, so we're going to be mounting the V-line in the glove box here, and we're going to be putting it on this shelf. You can also put it against the top here with some Velcro. To take this out, just pull on it, like that. And then we're going to be drilling a hole in this back cover. At the very back, you just pull on the two bottom sides here, and it'll pop out. And these three clips up top also hold it in place. We'll be drilling a hole around this area, and then we'll be running it to that shelf. So we'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. Alright, so this is the air cabin filter cover for the interior. We've used a drill bit to get this round shape here, and then we just cut out the holes here. So that way once we run all of our wires, we'll channel them through here, and they'll plug into the V-line, which will be around this area. So we're going to go ahead and get all of our wires into the glove box, and then we'll put this back on, and we'll show you how to do that. Alright, so we weren't able to get all of them ran through by just kind of running them with our hands, so we have this longer zip tie here that we're using. We've taped all of our wires to it, and we're just going to fish it through back here. Alright, so now that we've got all of our wires run into here, we're ready to put our air filter cabin cover back in. And we're just going to put all of our wires in the notch there. Slide all three top clips in. There we go. And now we've got all of our wires through, and we're ready to put the shelf back in and mount the V-line. Alright, so we're ready to put the radio back in. We're going to be bolting in the two bottom bolts and then doing the two screws as well on the bottom. So we're going to do the bolt on the passenger side first. Yeah. And at first I like to hand tighten these so that way they don't come loose and you can actually feel if you have them in the right hole. There you go. So we got the passenger one tightened there, and now we'll do the one on the driver's side. We're going to do the one on the driver's side next. There we go. Now we're ready to do the screws. Alright, now that these are in place, we're going to go ahead and plug this back in down here. And this one as well will go into this module. And then the four of these will be going in our front panel here, so we'll wait on those, and we're going to move on to the vents. Alright, so now we're going to be plugging in this connector for the driver's side vent. It's kind of difficult to get it right. Try rotating it this way. There we go. So now we got that one in, we'll move on to the passenger side. Alright, so we're ready to do the passenger side now. Make sure you don't forget this 2-pin connector here. That'll go into this plug right in the middle. You just want to make sure that all the clips get lined up and push in. I like to just feel across it and gently push in all the way around to make sure all the clips went in. Now we can move on to the bottom panel. Alright, before we slide in the panel down here, we're going to turn the vehicle on. Not the engine, but just the accessory here. So we can shift down. We're going to go down into drive. And then we can put the panel down into place and begin plugging in these connectors. We do have 4 connectors back here. You might have just the 2 if you don't have the heated seats. Now that all those are plugged in, we're just going to slide this in. Just make sure all the corners went in well. And yeah, we've got it all back together, and now we're ready to test. Alright, so after installing the VLine or VLite, you might see this screen because we've unplugged the power for the radio and reconnected it. You can go online and find the radio code and use the VIN and the part number for the radio, or you can press and hold the power button for 2 seconds, and that'll take you out of the code screen. Alright, so we've retained the factory USB in this vehicle, so we're going to go ahead and show you that that does work for CarPlay. As you can see, we've got CarPlay running through the factory USB.